Perfect. Good evening, everyone. It is Thursday, December 9th, 2021. Welcome to the North Clackamas School Board open session. Sorry, I got buttons screaming at me. We'll begin our evening with our native land acknowledgement. Of course, as usual, because we are online, we hold space for the flag. But we will not recognize it formally here. Director Bauer, are you ready for our native land acknowledgement?
Yes, thank you, Chair Ford. We acknowledge the land on which we sit and which we call the North Clackamas School District. It rests on the traditional and indigenous lands and village sites of the native peoples of the Kalapuya, Chinook, Malala, and Clackamas. We take this opportunity to offer gratitude for the ability to learn, work, and be a community on this land. And we offer thanks to the original caretakers of this region. We recognize the historic policies of colonization, genocide, relocation, and assimilation that affected Indigenous and Native families, both past and present, and that will affect those in the future, and honor the resilience and revitalization of our Indigenous and Native communities. We pay our respects to the elders, both past and present, who have been the stewards of this land throughout the generations.
Thank you. Moving along to our minutes from November 18th, 2021. Open the floor for approval.
Board Chair, Director Benaloga, I've moved that we approve the minutes from November 18th, 2021.
Director Schradel, second.
And properly moved by Director Benaloga and second by Director Schradel. Any discussion needed? Okay, seeing none. All opposed, please voice yourselves. Hearing none, minutes from November 18th are now approved. Next on our agenda is consent agenda. There are 5 items. Employment changes, transportation, shop utility easement, travel request for Save and Schellenberg construction, travel request for Rex Putnam High School music program, and travel request for Rex Putnam High School girls basketball. I open the floor for...
Chair?
Yes.
This is Director Bauer. Could we consider, since there's so many, individually, each item?
Absolutely. Again, I'll open the floor for employment changes. Do I have a motion?
Director Schradel, move approval of consent agenda item A, employment changes.
Director Perez, second.
Excellent. It's been properly moved by Director Schradel and second by Director Perez. All approved. All against approving, please voice yourselves. Hearing none, consent agenda A, employment changes, passes. Consent agenda B, transportation shop utility easement, open the floor for a motion.
Director Schradel, move approval of consent agenda item B, transportation shop utility easement.
Director Perez, second.
Any discussion needed? Okay, seeing none. All that do not approve transportation shop utility easement, please voice yourselves. Hearing none. Consent agenda B, transportation shop utility easement passes. Consent agenda C, travel request, Save and Schellenberg construction. Open the floor for a motion.
Director Schradel, move approval of consent agenda item C, travel request, Save and Schellenberg construction.
Bauer, second. Sorry.
Properly moved and second. Any discussion needed? Okay, all those who do not approve, please voice yourselves. Hearing none, motion passes for consent agenda C, travel request, Saban Schellenberg Construction. Consent agenda, travel request, Rex Putnam High School Music Program. Open the floor for motion.
Go, yeah, Kathy, please go ahead.
Okay, this is, are we on C? I just want to clarify.
We are on D as
D,
in
okay.
David.
Okay, thank you. This is Director Way. I move consent item agenda D, travel request to Rex Putnam High School Music Program.
Second.
Director Schradel, second.
Okay, and probably moved in second. Any discussion needed?
Chair Ford, I just would like to comment. It is a large number of students on this trip, but just want to encourage them to stay healthy, do the layering of getting vaccinated, wear masks, and social distance when possible. Thank you.
Any other discussion needed? Okay, hearing none. All those that approve, all those who do not approve, I apologize. All those who do not approve consent agenda D, travel request, Rex Putnam High School Music Program, please voice yourself. Okay, hearing none, motion passes. And last thing, consent agenda item E, travel request, Rex Putnam High School Girls Basketball. Do I have a motion?
Director Schradel, move approval of consent agenda item E, travel request, Rex Putnam High School girls basketball.
Bowers, second.
Properly moved, properly second. Any discussion needed? Okay, hearing none. Those who oppose consent agenda item E, travel request, Rex Putnam High School girls basketball, please voice yourself. Okay, hearing none, motion passes. Okay, we are done with all consent agenda items. Moving into our community comments. I first will read from our policy. Any individual desiring to speak may indicate their desire by submitting their name, city, or residence, either email or phone number, and the group, if any, that is represented on the sign-in sheet or online form prior to the board meeting. A speaker should give their name, city, residence, and the group, if any, that is represented, and will limit their presentation to 3 minutes. If there are more patrons desiring to present comments than time allotted, the board chair has authority to reduce the presentation time for individual speakers or institute a presentation process with attention to order of sign up and city of residence. Speakers may offer objective criticisms of district operations and programs that are of concern to them. The board is restricted from hearing and will not consider complaints regarding any individual district staff member or any person connected with the district and organization centered around youth and their positive development. As an organization centered around youth and their positive development, all speakers will model respectful public comment and be mindful of civil discourse. The board vests in its chair or other presiding officer authority to terminate the remarks of any individual when those remarks do not adhere to the rules established in this policy. I believe we have 2 speakers. As usual, when you get to 30 seconds, I will put this up. I'll take off my background so you guys can see it. Our first speaker is it Angela?
Yep.
Mhm.
We have her in the room. Angela, you can begin whenever you're ready.
All right. Hi there. I'm Angela Peterson, and I just want to note that I have been here with this group for the last 5 months since August. We've been standing outside the district office building where you, the school board, should be. It's quite cold out here tonight. And so I'd like to talk to you a little bit about that. The Oregon School Board Association says that this about the Oregon School Board's responsibilities, quote, because they serve the community, board members must work with the public as they establish the mission and direction of education. It's up to the board to engage the community in public education. School boards are responsible to all the people in their community and all the students too. Every decision about every item must be made with the interest of everyone in mind. The North Clackamas School Board is not fulfilling their obligations by continuing to keep these doors closed and school board meetings exclusively online. The North Clackamas School District's tax-paying community members and students deserve better, and I think you all know it. There is no legitimate reason to keep these meetings closed. Our children and teachers are teaching and learning in person every day. Our athletic, musical, and theatrical events are performing with audiences in person. Multiple large public events, such as the ribbon cutting ceremonies at Nelson High School that I attended, Milwaukee High School, and the new Urban High School, have been all in person and streamlined online for the public to see. Neighboring districts, they've been holding in-person school board meetings for months. The only honest, rational explanation behind why this board continues to hold these isolating, disconnected, disengaging, and impersonal virtual board meetings is to purposefully hide from and attempt to silence the community members that provide maybe a different perspective than those held by this board. Even the process of applying online to give a public comment is confusing. It has kept several people from successfully making a public comment. These attempts to elude the community are disrespectful, divisive, and hardly in the best interest of all North Clackamas School District students. I'd like to end with a quote. Quote, "My goal before I exit is to see a board meeting with 1,000 people. When people show up, conversations start, voices are heard, and that's my focus." This was a statement by you, Libra, in an interview for 6 months ago. Please be a leader that lives up to your word and open these doors. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Karen, correct?
That is correct.
Hi, Karen. You can begin whenever you're ready.
All right, thank you. Thank you everyone for being here and for listening to these comments and taking into consideration the comments that are being said. I appreciate it. I came to you previously asking for the COVID guidelines for families to be translated and put into one page, and I saw that happen, and I really appreciate that. And I saw it sent out to families, so I really want to thank you and appreciate you for listening to that and getting that information out. I'm still having problems with getting any communication from the school, though, and as far as getting any information from them or them getting any information from me. My child's been sick again. Of course, it's winter. It happens. Elementary schools. But with that being said, we still have countless openings in our school district throughout all the schools. And our staff, our education staff, and our teachers are worn out. I mean, I almost cried at teacher conferences for my daughter's teacher because she looked so stressed and so just flustered. It's unreal, and it's being felt from the school district office all the way down to your IAs, to your nutrition staff. And I think that we need to bring parents back into the schools to help and volunteer. As long as we follow the guidelines that we've put down. I'm a volunteer coordinator for Milwaukee El Puente, and I've been one for the past 3 years, and I have never seen so many parents come and ask to participate in schools before. Our parents want to help. They're out there, and they're willing to take those guidelines, the liability waivers, making sure that their vaccine shots and their vaccine cards are in, all of that. And I really think that our staff would appreciate it, and so would our students. We, unfortunately, not to you guys, but the state and federal decided to push forward and pretend that our students aren't suffering from the past 2 years. And they are. And we're seeing that in classrooms. And we need help in our classrooms. So let's ask our parents for help. Let's allow those parents to be in there for help. I think it would greatly help everyone and morale, especially, like I said, we have close to 100 openings throughout the whole district. So we really need the help. And I really think that at the beginning of next year, we should really look at bringing those parents back and allowing them into the classrooms and into the schools. Again, I really appreciate you guys being here. I know this is a tough year, and I appreciate you guys listening to my comments and to everyone else's comments. Thank you.
Thank you. And as usual, I'll give a summary of the emails we have received. We received a couple around school calendar changes. We received an email about the Rittenhouse situation. We received community substitute email requesting that community step in for substituting. We received a request for more information around COVID and quarantine requirements. We received an unmask our children email. We received an ODE unmasking understanding. Since the updates, this person was happy to get them. So appreciate all of that feedback. Moving to our next agenda item, which is the public involvement and engagement discussion. I love it when people quote me, but I actually said that quote in 2019. It's just being replayed over and over again. We are super appreciative of all the engagement we have had, considering that I remember this, we used to have about 3 to 4 usual suspects outside of the staff inside of the room. And so I think at this point, our public engagement has been increased. And I think that I speak for everyone on our board in saying, we appreciate that. We know that when people speak up, it means that they care. It means that they want to get involved. And it means that this district matters to them. And all of those things are really, really positive elements. In this discussion, I want to point out a few things. First and foremost, there is a distinct difference between the meeting responsibility of board members and the desires of the community. The meeting responsibilities of board members are that we do business in public. We cannot vote behind closed doors. We cannot move the business of the district forward behind closed doors. That must be in public. And there is lots of changes and lots of data and also written document and law that says public is making sure that everyone has access to it. So that includes being online. In addition to that, our responsibility is moving the business forward in a one-way communication during a business meeting. We hear the public's request, which is different than responsibility, that they want a dialogue around many different items. They want to have a two-way conversation. I want to be clear. The business meeting of the school district, all school district, is not required or is formatted for two-way dialogue. So because of that reality, as the board chair, I'd like to bring forth the acknowledgement that there's a lot of public involvement and engagement. And I'd like for us as a board to talk about how we potentially can take that engagement and have sessions where people can get their desires versus what we're required to do in a business meeting. Everything that happens in this meeting is above board. We are following all policies and all directives based on what we are required to do. So in this moment, I'd like for us as a board to discuss something very particular. What would you think about us putting together a group of community members that get to discuss items that they are publicly involved in, engaging in, and we as a board and the staff can also design ways to give information during those sessions where it can be a two-way conversation versus the requirement of a business meeting. I'll open the floor for discussion.
Chair Ford, sorry if other people wanted to go first. I just have some initial reactions. First off, I think it's a great idea. For just as one board member, really support public engagement and community involvement and all the ways that that community and parents are speaking up around a lot of different topics. So I just want to say that I really appreciate that. Secondly, I guess my questions for this idea, and I know that we're just having a discussion and maybe some brainstorming, but would it be like educational forums that the district would put on that board members would attend? So that's sort of just one question. And then I know another thing that is also happening right now is obviously setting up for our next strategic plan, right? Which is also a huge responsibility of the board and the district to oversee. And I know that there's just ongoing community outreach efforts that are happening on that front. So I bring that up because I don't want us to necessarily recreate similar processes if we're already trying to get community feedback and engagement. So those are just my two thoughts. And I really appreciate this discussion and thank you for bringing it forward.
And just for feedback on the two things you brought forward, I think one of the goals or objectives is to provide opportunities to educate on kind of how it goes versus folks trying to figure it out on their own. And then I think that this would not be in replace of any other group. It would be for us to have the voice that many times I think people are frustrated. You can't do it in 3 minutes. And it's not appropriate during a business meeting. It's just the setup of this meeting is not built for that dialogue. But I hear people are asking for that, right? But it should not replace any other forum or any other place that people get to have input on specific directives. Director Schrader.
Thanks, Chair. I'm in favor of the community involvement and what I'm hearing. The question is, how do we provide both? Because or remote, and would this be a remote presence meeting, or would this be an in-person and hybrid meeting? Because not everybody can attend if it's in person. And then, we've had facilitators in the past because one person will have one idea, but 10 other people have different ideas of what the topic should be. So we've had trained facilitators come in and help get to the essential question in the past. So I'd be in favor of it. I just want it to be a very productive meeting and not be something that is a never-ending cycle. So a start time and a start date and an end date for doing this kind of change of how we do things.
Excellent. So I'm taking note of the question that, is it remote, is it hybrid? And also, are we going to have facilitators to help guide the conversations? I saw Director Perez, and then I saw you also, Director McVeigh. Director Perez.
Thank you, Board Chair. I like the idea, and I'm always one for pro community, coming together in person as much as possible when we can. So to have that, because these meetings, school board meetings, have never been, they weren't created for two-way discussion, as you said. And so having that, I'll use an example. The principal at my child's school there was a lot of parents that had a lot of questions, and the principal created a coffee with the principal every other week. And parents, they're doing it on Zoom, and parents come in, they ask their questions. And so to be able to do something like that would be awesome, for us to be able to have that two-way with our community. Absolutely. However that can be done, and considering hybrid facilitators and all that. So Yeah, I like the idea.
Great. Director McVeigh.
Turn my video off so I don't freeze. I love the idea. I love us, if we can figure out a way to do both virtual and in person to satisfy all the needs. And I agree. I think there's some I don't agree with every ODE and OHA decision either. And I think just having someone there to help facilitate so we can help educate ourselves and even the public on what our authority is on some of these decisions. Because I think there's a belief that we can rule our own kingdom and we have taxpayer dollars, and that is not an option. And we do in a way have bosses, and it's called the government. So I think it's a great idea. And I think that is going to, I don't know if it'll solve it, but it sure is going to make people feel like they've been heard and maybe get some answers that they, or clear up some misinformation.
Thank you for that. Director Benaloga.
Yes, thank you, Chair Ford. I echo a lot of those sentiments as well. I think that I agree with Director McVeigh that finding a way to have them to have it hybrid, or to make sure that there's as much participation as possible. I think we need to remember that community involvement is about sharing that responsibility for student success. That's what we're trying to do. And we need to try to build that community. And I think that having two-way conversations so that our community and our parents and our staff and our director and us as board directors help everyone navigate the resources and understand understand policies and the ins and outs of the district, and also understanding the ins and outs of the board. I also think that this is a way that we create leaders and we create advocates and we create people that understand the resources and understand the system. There's already a love of district and a love of community. So I think this is just another way to create that bond. One thing I would also want to mention is just making sure that a couple of my asks would be just making sure that we have a way we need to go to our families. We need to go to our community. Part of, and something that I think the district is working on, and I think that community engagement is not necessarily a place you ever get to that you're 100%. It's always evolving, right? We're always going to be changing our policy and our strategies when it comes to engaging our community. But I do want to make sure that we go to where our people are, where the communities that are not necessarily going to come to the district anyway, those are voices that we want to hear. And I also think that we need to keep in mind, and I know we will as we move forward with this process, is just making sure that we're culturally responsive, that we are going to those communities and we are reaching out to our different cultures within the district, and making sure that we're going to them in a respectful manner, and we're giving them a respectful and an easy way to come to us as well. So those would be my suggestions, Chair Ford.
Thank you for that. And what I heard you in your suggestions, you were also agreeing with many of the past suggestions, but also adding going to where our community is, and also making sure we're culturally responsive in the work that we do. Any other comments or discussion? Okay. With that, I want to summarize in saying, one, I appreciate you guys being open to this discussion. Another clarity point is, folks that are listening, even though this is a great idea, this is not something that we can do behind closed doors. Even this idea, we have to wait for this meeting to have this discussion, because we're required to do that in public. So it slows things down. But the whole point is we are obligated to do the work of the district in public. Slow as it is, it's intentional. And I hope that people can hear, we're not dismissing anyone. we're not hearing what the community is saying. We don't have a mechanism to allow you to hear or understand that you're being heard. And so now this discussion is the first step to us hopefully starting to move towards that. But we still have to be within the process. So in this moment, I would like to ask that if this board is okay with it, to move this discussion to action and say that we're okay with moving this idea into a public involvement engagement action plan so that we can actually do something. The floor is open.
Chair Ford, I would like to make a motion to move this item to develop an action plan to meet the principles of our policy. Is that sufficient?
We need a motion to move it to action first, and then we can make a motion about the
Okay.
action plan.
Okay, I will make that motion to move this item from discussion to action.
McVeigh, second.
Second. Oh,
I heard the motion from Director Bauer,
Sure.
McVeigh, second. Any discussion needed? Additional. Okay. Seeing none, all in favor, I'll do a roll call. Director McVeigh, how do you vote?
Aye.
Sorry. I will take your vote. We'll finish the roll call. So this is moving into action. Director Way, how do you vote?
Aye.
Excellent. Director Schrader, how do you vote?
Aye.
Director Benaloga,
Aye.
Director Perez,
aye.
Director Bauer,
Aye.
and I'm also an aye. Unanimously, we're moving it to action. Floor is now open for a motion.
Director Bauer, now I will make the motion to move this agenda or to move and directing the superintendent to develop an action plan to meet the principles of the policy, public involvement, engagement, and communication.
I'd like to, okay, I'll accept that motion. Is there a second?
Director Perez, second.
Okay, it's been properly moved in second. Do another roll call. Director McVeigh, how do you vote?
Aye.
Director Way,
Aye.
Director Schrader,
Aye.
Director Benaloga,
Aye.
Director Perez,
Aye.
Director Bauer.
Aye.
I'm also aye. Thank you guys for that. I just want to make one last statement. I know that we just directed the superintendent and staff to do this, but I want to be very clear. This was my idea. I take full responsibility for moving it forward. I know you guys will do the work, but I want to be in it with you guys. This is not, we're not trying to dump more work on you guys at all. So let's do this together and make sure we come up with something that we all can manage, because you guys got a lot on your plate already. Okay. All right. Thank you guys for that. Next, we got board reports. What have you guys been up to? I'll start off with Director Way. What you been up to?
Thank you, Chair Ford. Well, I'm glad I just pulled up my notes because I had a weird feeling that I was going to get called on first. I have just one exciting update, but it is, I think, pretty exciting and significant nonetheless. I think, as I mentioned in my last board report, I have been in conversations with some student leaders around high school student leaders around the state, just, talking about just a lot of their struggles and needs, quite frankly, as they're returning back to school. And so this is a part of the Oregon School Boards Association Color Caucus conversation and just ongoing work to really center and prioritize student voice. So I have met with some facilitators who are actually really excited and interested in facilitating a conversation with student leaders in January. January. And so this is a group of trained facilitators that have expertise working with young people. And the name of the student organization I mentioned last time is Student Voice. And again, they're made up of high school students from around Oregon. Hope to definitely get some North Clackamas student leaders involved. But there is a proposal for just several different workshops that they want to do. The facilitators want to do with students in January. So it is coming up, and I just received that information on the details of those workshops. But I think the idea is just to start small with, a group of just students who want to talk about what does advocacy mean, what does self-care mean, centering voices of color, etc., supporting staff. And so it's going to be a small group, just trainings first, and then we're going to try to pilot it. And then after January, for the rest of the school year, we'll see if we can sort of scale up and include more students and more high schools to get involved. So I know that was a little bit lengthy, but just wanted to share that, and excited that this is happening. And again, really echo some of the sentiments that have been shared in the past of just, I think really trying to meet students where they're at, especially in this really hard year. So thank you.
Thank you, Director Way. You're always centering our youth, and I appreciate that consistency from you, really do. Director Schradel.
Thank you, Chair. Actually, I just have one thing. I attended a policy meeting this week, and some of the documents are coming along quite well. Thank you very much for the time.
Thank you for that. Our policies are everything, so appreciate that. Director McVeigh.
Just two quick updates. Spent time on an OSAA appeals hearing, which is always fascinating work. And then this is the season, or was the season, of fall state championships. And so a lot of trophies being handed out in the last couple of weeks. And I did the 6A and the 5A volleyball out at Liberty High School, which was a lot of fun to see kids playing sports. And it was great to see the crowds being able to be there and supporting friends and family on the court. So great.
Thank you. Director Benaloga.
Yes, thank you, Chair Ford. I was able to attend the new urban ribbon cutting ceremony. It was really nice to see the building and have a student guided tour so we could see the building and meet some of the staff. There's a lot of love in that building, and a lot of love and caring about the community that attends New Urban. So it was just a really, really nice ceremony, and I was glad to be there. And also continuing my work on the committees that I'm on, which is on the Wellness Committee, and we are working on a movement challenge with the staff in February. And then with Director Schradel on policy. It's always, I'm learning so much, and I appreciate the opportunity to learn and to really be in the ground floor of those policy discussions. And then also working with our PCLA as we move forward and work on a What Counts forum so we can really, again, engage our community and find out what our community and our parents are interested in learning about and what they're interested in having brought to the district. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Director Benaloga. Director Perez.
Thank you, Board Chair. Due to some new recent work demands, I had missed the policy meeting and the wellness meeting, and but my fellow board members, Director Benaloga and Director Schradel, were there and just gave a report on those two. And but my work should be back to normal in January, so I'll be back in those meetings. Thank you, Board Chair.
Congratulations on your work transition. Excited for you. Director Bauer.
Thank you, Chair Ford. I wanted to highlight the RAUB partnership again. They're just full of opportunities of support for our families and our students. They meet online once a month. I attended 2 PTO meetings online just to have that feeling of connecting with parents again. Their numbers are down, but there's a strong group of involved parents that continue to raise resources to support their students and their staff. So it was just nice to even see them online and hear from the principals. North Clackamas Education Foundation had an appreciation Zoom event to recognize their great work and support from their donors. And I did want to highlight again the 20 plus candidates that applied for our budget committee. That was a historic number. And those are the type of people and others that we want to keep involved. And so I didn't say too much during the discussion about community input because the board did such a great job. I think they covered all my points. So kudos. And yeah, it will take all of us working together. Thank you for bringing that comment out, Chair Ford. I think the most exciting participation I had was with the mock interviews. Since I'm retired, I have a little bit more time than the rest of the board members, but I was able to visit 3 of the 4 high schools and actually talk with high school students. And it was inspiring. It was helpful to me. And I learned just as much, maybe more than they did. But I was able to talk to principals and staff, and they are all working so hard, just as we get that community input. I do see, the hard work in their eyes, but they're passionate about helping their kids. And so thankful whenever, we are able to support them in any way we can. I would really encourage our community to step up to help in that event. I know it takes time, but if you have any flexibility, they need more input from people who have background in health, management, technical skills. I think I was the only STEM person there. So that's another area that they could use some help. So again, I just want to highlight the work of our teachers and our staff. When I talk to principals, they are stepping up and covering for substitutes. We do have that shortage. And I know our teachers are having to adjust lesson plans for academic and emotional needs. So let's all try to continue to be patient and understanding and support each other. We all need each other to get through this. That's my 2 cents.
Thank you, Director Bauer. For my report, OSBA meetings are definitely happening. The new urban cutting was awesome and just incredible to get the tour. There was so many pieces of the building that were excellent, especially the preservation of different sections of the building. But to be honest with you, my favorite part of the building was the skateboard area where they could lock up their skateboards for the day. I just thought it was really innovative and super cool looking. And then, of course, one of the highlights of my time and since our last board report was visiting the bus depot and getting behind the wheel at the bus depot. I'm so excited you guys all know how I feel about the bus drivers. So I got to tour the entire place as well as our upcoming construction. And it's just wonderful to meet everyone and to be there. I can't wait for retirement. That is absolutely still my goal. So thank you, Kathy team, for welcoming me. It was super fun. And that's it for board reports. Moving right along to our next item, which is capital construction bond update. This is a report. We have 3 people. I guess who's starting us off?
I can do that, Chair. I'm going to share our presentation. I will say this is our last official presentation to you, at least in this format. We will come back and do a final one after everything is all done. But we are excited to at least bring this part to a close. This is our typical presentation to update you on the financials and the final projects. And starting us off, I'm going to turn it over to Ron Stewart.
Good evening. Just a reminder, this was the report given to the Community Bond Oversight Committee on October 20th, and it's using the August 31st financials. So it's been a while since these numbers have been refreshed. But we have a $524 million bond program, and we're down to, even though it says 4% less, it's left, it's about 2.5% as of now. We completed 41 of the 41 projects. And of course, there's other projects that weren't counted in that. For example, working on the transportation shop right now, and we'll be working on some emergency preparedness as well. But there's no project in design and no projects coming up. We are at the end of the bond program.
I'll remind folks that the actual documents are in your board packets and also will be available on our bond oversight webpage so that people can actually see what's typed in there. These are just placeholders so that you know and refer to those documents.
It's our inclusion and diversity and contracting report that you receive every quarter. If you remember, we have those three sections of the blue section, the consultant summary, the green section is contractor summary, and then the gold section is the combination of both. Our aspirational goal is 15% participation. And you see in the columns the previous report compared to the report. In the blue font, we see that for the consultants, the participation was over 21%, 21.92%. For contractors, it was almost 15%, 14.82%. And then overall down at the bottom in the gold section, it was a combination of 16.24%, which is above our aspirational goal of 15%. Our milestone schedule update. The red font indicates that which has changed since last time we reported to you. And you'll see that this is in 4 different sections: the projects completed section, the project in construction section, the project and design sections, and the future project section. And all the projects that were in construction have been crossed off and have moved up into the substantially complete projects completed section. There's still some miscellaneous things at all these, many of these projects. We're finishing up the covered play areas, for example, at Happy Valley Middle School and Rock Creek Middle School. And of course, not counted as a project, but is a significant project is the transmission shop that'll be completed in early 2022.
I believe that this is Galen.
Yes, thank you. Good evening. So as Ron pointed out, we have a $524 million revised budget, which included the premiums on the sale of the bond, as well as extra funds that we have received over the course of the bond to bring it up to that amount. We have contractually paid or contractually obligated 503 million, 100 million, sorry. And we have remaining 20 million in budget. This slide and the next slide show the areas in yellow where there's been a revision to the budget, either up or down. If it's gone up, it's come from contingency. If it's gone down, it's returned to the contingency. So we had a revision to the athletic fields, to the district stadium project on this page, and to the Save Schellenberg project, as well as the security camera and fencing project, which brought us down to a contingency of $2.3 million. This is our income statement. You'll notice that cash remaining is more than what we're showing as the 20 million remaining in budget, and that's because the cash remaining includes anything that would be encumbered but hasn't gone out the door yet, hasn't been spent yet. So we have in October, we had about $45 million left out of the $524 million budget. And finally, we have our revenue forecast. It hasn't changed much. The one thing that will change slightly will be that 17.7 million down there for interest, basically, that we have received. We have now sold any of the investments that we had remaining. The final ones were sold at the end of September, beginning of October, as we close out the bond. And now all we have is monies left in our local government investment pool or in our bond checking, and one other money market account. So as we spend this down, which is happening fairly rapidly, we'll be moving all of that into the checking account. So we won't be seeing much more in the way of interest, but that number will change a little bit. And then we have a one final small payment still to come in on one of the seismic grants. And that's the end of my section.
Back to Ron.
Not a lot new to report on the corporate activity tax. As you know, we filed legal action, and they pushed out the date for our trial to April or May of 2022. It was scheduled for early 2022, has been pushed out. The reserve document is something that the Community Bond Oversight Committee reviews line by line, but similar to the other reports, the red font indicates things that have changed since the last report. This is in the sections of the actual transfers and then the projected transfer sections. In the actual transfer sections, 4 numbers have changed and some wording has changed. And then the projected transfer section, starting on line 5, we have 3 numbers that have changed and a couple of wording changes. The bottom line is, if you go to line 84, when we're projecting all the transfers in and out, there's a balance of $110,000. We're obviously hoping for better than that and even do some more miscellaneous projects of asphalt and roofing that bond steering will review, and a list of other considerations that have been compiled over the years. But this is how close we are getting to the end.
The bold underline projects are there because they've been completed since our last presentation to you. And as Ron started at the beginning of this presentation, everything that was under construction this summer has moved up now into substantially completed. So all of our schools opened this fall that were under construction, and we are doing a few other things there, but the students are in classes and school is going on as we had hoped and as regular. But we're excited to have all of those projects now completed. 41 of 41 is a great bottom line. That continues on. New Urban, which was mentioned earlier, and then Rock Creek moving over to the Clackamas High School East Campus, returning it to its rightful size as a middle school, and completing that phase. And then just a few things at Spring Mountain that we were also being able to complete, mostly maintenance issues, painting, flooring, that type of thing. Ron mentioned, and so did our chair, mentioned some things going on over at Transportation. This is our new under construction shop, as we'll bring over the final group of our transportation department. So you see the footing and the pipings and things being done there for the infrastructure to be built on the left. And then what it looked like just a week or two ago, or I guess this was back in October. No, this was since. I added this photo since. So this was a couple of weeks ago, as you can see the framing going up there for that shop. And for those of you who did not get to go to the New Urban ribbon cutting, we wanted you to see the building in its most completed stage. This was as some folks were moving in as well. But this is our final video to share with you of the under construction or just newly completed projects.
This is our finished New Urban Courtyard and entrance. This is the historic light pole that was located adjacent to the existing building that we saved and reused it and put a solar light on top, so it's actually lighted at night. This is our new commons area. It's kind of the focal point of the school. We have visual art displays on first floor and second floor. Inside, it's also used as our cafeteria, but we have mobile tables, soft seating. As you can see, we have some large fans The ceiling between floors 1 and 2 in the Commons was reclaimed from the old wainscoting in the existing building. So it has been remilled, recut, and reinstalled here. There's also a eating table on the west side of the common space that was also reclaimed from the same wood. This is our new media center here at New Urban. It has open windows along Oak Grove Boulevard, has a lot of natural light. We actually have a sliding glass wall that opens up and creates one space with the new commons area. This is our new counseling space here at New Urban. As you can see, we're filling it full of boxes and moving in, but great space, much larger than what we had before. This is our new admin space. As you can see, it has some nice features for the front desk area and reception waiting. Down the hallway, we have conference rooms, principal offices, health room, bathroom, and then it leads into our staff lounge. This roll-up door accesses the exterior courtyard outside of our makerspace room, which is a nice space for good weather projects. These are our new skateboard racks that are lockable. These skateboard racks are one of the most requested items to have in the new building. This is our new gym. Overhead, our new entrance and front courtyard. Going along Oak Grove Boulevard, you can see the new media center. Southeast corner has our Twilight classroom. As we go down the drive into the new parking lot, you can see the much improved parking area. As we move along the new gym, you can see our new parking spaces, new green space at the north side. As we come around the other side of the gym, you can see the new walkway down to the lower parking area. And as we come along the west side of the building, you can see the new landscaping between the new building and old building. And then we wrap it up at the new courtyard in the front area.
Okay, there's a couple pretty exciting things in that building. And I don't know if you caught, there's one quick glimpse going into the counseling center. Student art is replicated or it also showcased in that building. You saw at a previous meeting the panels that move in the commons, and so you can rotate them, install art and rotate them. And as you walked into the counseling office, the front counter was just they're different vertical stripes of various colors. That was an inspiration from student artwork that we did. The architects and the art teacher there and I went in and talked with students in the old building long before when we were still in design, and they created collages out of cut up magazines of the kind of feel that they wanted in their new building. And the colors and the images of those paper or those magazine collages is replicated in what that front counter is there. It's supposed to pay homage to that student artwork. It's pretty cool. And then also in the counseling office, not seen in this video, if you're over there, please ask to go see it. There are images that were taken of student artwork and created into a mural. So it's pretty awesome to have student artwork showcased in a building where art is really at the heart of a lot of the things that they do there. So it's pretty cool. Next steps, as we mentioned, miscellaneous small projects. We still have a couple of covered play areas to install at Happy Valley Middle and Rock Creek Middle. Those were only delayed because of materials shortage and delay in the supply chain, but those are going to happen this spring. We have warranty phase work to do once now that school is back in session, kids are in those spaces, they're using things, and we're noticing now, oh, these things don't quite work the way they were supposed to. And now we're starting to see some of those pieces that we're able to get in and repair as well. The closeout process, documentation, all that stuff that needs to happen to cross our T's and dot our I's. And the bond office and staffing there is shrinking and has shrunk down to a very bare bones staff. Ron is still leading that group. We just have a couple project managers and phasing out some of the office staff now this month. So we're getting very, very close to wrapping up. And we will bring you something. We want to showcase this to our entire community sometime in the spring of, this is everything that we did. Here's what we said we promised back in 2016 when voters voted on this bond. Here's all of those things that we promised and that we did, as well as more. And we want to make sure we showcase and show that to them. So with that, I will stop sharing. And if anybody has any questions, we're happy to address those.
Thank you for that presentation. Anyone with questions or?
I have a comment, Board Chair. Thanks, Board Chair. Yeah, I just want to say, actually, Cindy, that last thing that you said, I was just thinking that, what's a way that, I was thinking, I wish there was a way that we could show everyone in our district all the work that was done on every single building, school building. It was pretty amazing. And I was just thinking, I just wish every parent and student, everyone could see every single building. So I'm glad you said that about putting something together. And I also just want to say, having worked with you on the bond oversight and also with Ron and Galen and everyone else on that team, I just want to say what you managed to do with the resources and the assets that were put into your trust by this community is beyond extraordinary, and we are absolutely lucky to have you. And I don't think I don't know that we can appreciate how much you've done with the assets and the resources given to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you for those comments. Anyone else? Director Way, I see you, Director Bauer. I'll get you after.
Okay, thank you, Chair Ford. Yes, I also just want to commend Cindy, Ron, Galen, just everyone on the team for just really, shepherding and stewarding these resources so that we just have beautiful and safe buildings and facilities. This is a little bit of a somber note, and I think what prompted me to raise this is the shooting that a lot of us have heard, which happened in Michigan at the school, and just how these just continue to be very, very devastating incidents that happen in our community. And obviously many lives are impacted. And I remember a couple of years ago, and Cindy, I think you were there. So you were definitely there, but we talked about putting together the security safety task force several years ago, where a lot of the conversations with community was just around responding to active shooter incidents, and heaven forbid we would hopefully never have to encounter that in our district. But I know that community had a lot of concerns around just what are we doing in case it does happen, and how are we prepared in our school buildings and security and all of that. And I just remember it was several months long of discussion with a lot of focus groups, and folks had a lot of input to share. And so I just want to bring that up again because it's top of mind for me. And as we're closing out this program, I just want to make sure that everyone who participated in that task force several years ago also know that we have taken those recommendations, and from what it sounds like from your previous reports, we've also been implementing a lot of those safeguards and procedures and changes into our new buildings. So actually current and new buildings. So can you or Ron just make a comment on just super quick, just update on that, just so that the public knows that we've been actively working on securing our buildings?
Yes, absolutely. Every design team we had, every single project that touched a school, we looked at what those safety recommendations were. We also had our risk manager at the table. And then we also created our own internal safety standards. For instance, how far should a window be visible? What windows would make sure we have coverings on, which don't need those, et cetera. And so we followed all of those standards. And then the bond was able to come back, wasn't necessarily part of our bond commitment, but it was to meet the security task force recommendation on creating some kind of a secure entry system. And we've just finalized that now. It was paused during COVID, but a buzzer entry system. And so that the front doors are locked after students arrive. And there's a buzzer entry system now that the main office controls. That's just one example of those. So thank you for bringing that up.
Thank you. Director Bauer, you had your hand up. Did I lose you? Did we lose her? Oh, she said lost connection as soon as I asked. See? All right, anybody else have a comment? I just want to say that one, it's fascinating to me, the contributions of individuals, and everything matters, right? Like every little piece of what all of you have done, every person working on the building, from drawing it to building it to checking it out and inspecting it. In particular, you guys, and managing it, what a legacy. So I really appreciate, and I hope you can digest that, years from now, when all of our existence is no longer talked about or quoted, by the way, we will be known, you will be known for managing these projects with excellence. And so I hope that you really can pause and digest that. That's a magnificent thing to contribute to the future. So thank you for that. And Galen, in particular for you, you came in the middle of it. And that's not always the easiest thing with finances. Sometimes things can get lost. Sometimes things can fall in the cracks. There can be gaps that you just don't know because you're stepping in. And the management from the money side, I just think our community should be proud. I think the dollars are well used, and they'll be used beyond all of our existence, and we couldn't ask for more than that. So thank you all for the management of it. I tried to stall, but doesn't look like Missy's coming back anytime soon. So I'm going to move along. So next thing on our agenda is the superintendent evaluation process, the discussion action. And this is around the the reviewing of the process and the timeline. It's within your packet. We did push it from our last meeting to this one because our last meeting was jam-packed with different things that I didn't want to skip over a moment for this. So now this is discussion and action. So I will open the floor for any discussion that's needed on this. If not, you guys can give me a motion to turn it into action. What's your pleasure?
Board Chair, I'd like to go ahead and make a motion to turn this item into an action item.
Motion is now received. I have a second.
Second.
Director Benalogo is quicker. Any discussion about changing this to an action item? Okay, seeing none, all opposed to changing this to an action item, please voice yourselves. I'm just stating on the record that Director Bauer is still not back. She's lost connection. So motion will carry to change this to an action item with one abstention vote for the record. And now there's an action item. I'll open the floor for a motion. We need to talk about approving the process and the timeline. Floor is open.
This is Director Wei. I make a motion to approve the superintendent evaluation process and evaluation timeline as attached.
Director Perez, second.
Okay, it's been properly moved and second to make this, to approve the process and timeline. Any discussion? Okay, seeing none. We'll do a roll call just because we do have one not here. Director McVeigh, how do you vote?
Aye.
Director Way?
Aye.
Director Strado?
Aye.
Director Benaloga?
Aye.
Director Perez?
Aye.
And I am also aye. And again, stating for the record, Director Bauer has lost connection and is not here. So motion carries with 6 voting aye. All right, moving right along to our next thing, which is our policy revisions. Ms. Shireman, are you ready for us? Fun stuff. This is the good stuff.
I am ready for you. Good evening. Good to see you all. And it's my pleasure to bring forward tonight some policies for your consideration. This is a discussion item. I am not seeking action tonight. These policies have been reviewed by the policy review team with makeup from both staff and board. They've been reviewed and have consensus to come forward. The first policy that I'm bringing forward to you and the administrative regulation in your extras packet is the All Students Belong policy, one that I would say we take much pride in the development of across the state in the past year and here in the school district. A policy and procedure that were developed about a year ago to ensure that there's strong policy guidance related specifically to incidents of bias and hate in schools. Since the original adoption, there's been a House bill that was passed, House Bill 2697, which further clarifies some of the intent of this statewide initiative. You'll notice that there is some policy language change. It does not represent any kind of real practical change for us in the way that the policy is applied. Rather, it more clearly outlines the definitions of a bias incident and what a symbol of hate is, as well as more clearly stating the applicability of the policy to all students, employees, and visitors on school facilities and at school events. The next policy is one in the B category, the board meeting BD policy. House Bill 2560 updated the law regarding the school district's responsibility to provide access to meetings via telephone, video, or other electronic means when it's reasonably possible. And this too does not represent a practice change for us in that North Clackamas has been providing an electronic means for participation and is currently doing so. The final policy tonight is a wording change to ensure that North Clackamas School District's protected class language in all of our policies includes gender identity. So this is related to House Bill 3041 that clarified and pulled apart gender identity and sexual orientation in Oregon state law. And so you're going to now notice over the course of the next few months, we'll be reviewing our policies and bringing any policies relevant that need to have gender identity added to them. The majority of our policies already have it there, but we'll work through them and that protection went into place upon passage of the legislation. I am available for any questions or comments you may have. Thanks.
Thank you for that. And again, this is to repeat, this is a discussion item. Anybody have anything they'd like to say or questions?
Chair Ford, I just have a quick question for Director Shireman, which is there any fiscal costs associated with any of these bills that we should be factoring?
It's a good question. Primarily with all students belong, we'll have some training requirements that are ongoing, particularly for administrative staff. I don't right now anticipate that would require any consulting fees, but it is possible we might work with some legal counsel to make sure that any of those trainings are in line. They would be small, fiscal, any kind of encumbrance we may have, it would be small. But I don't see any that would be substantial there. Good question. Thank you.
Always a great question for folks that are responsible for oversight.
Mhm.
Any other questions? Okay, seeing none, so we'll bring this back next meeting, January. Is that the intent here?
It is.
Okay.
Yes, it is. Come back. Hearing no changes, it would be in consent likely in the January 13, maybe? Is that the date of the meeting? Thanks.
I don't know the
Next
exact.
year.
Yeah, next year is right.
Next year.
That's accurate. Yeah, that's very accurate. The date, I'm trying to get through the day. Thank you for that. I appreciate that presentation, and I encourage the board members to keep reviewing it, as when we get to that point, if you have additional things, it'd be a great time to bring it up. But if not, we'll just move forward with it. So thank you for that. Thank you for the presentation. Last but not least on the agenda is our board meeting format. We have committed to bringing this up once a month. And the discussion at hand is what do we want as a board to continue to do? So our options are, there's 3 options: to continue the online only approach, which is what we are doing now, move into the hybrid approach, which would include this, and also being in person. And then in the last part of all of those decisions is discussing who is there if we decide to do hybrid, how do we do that, and then what are we doing for masking, and also concerns that we need to present. So the first thing I'd like for us to discuss is what would we like to our meetings to exist as, online only or hybrid. At this point, we do have all the equipment set up, correct, Dr. James?
Yes, all of the equipment is set up in the boardroom.
Excellent. So I will open the floor for discussion on just that question. Would you like to continue online, or would you like to move to hybrid?
McVeigh here. I would like to move to hybrid.
Okay. The floor is open. So, Director Biddle.
Yes, Chair Ford, can I ask a question about the technology?
Yes.
It's Dr. James, it says that testing and training is yet to be scheduled. Do we have an idea of when the technology will be functioning, and would it be available for the January meeting?
The equipment is functioning. We have tested it, but we would need to make sure that you as the directors are trained and have had an opportunity to take a look at it. So we'd need to do that before the next meeting.
Okay, excellent. Thank you. I would also be in favor of moving to a hybrid model. Thank you.
Chair Ford, I also would be in favor of moving to a hybrid now that the new technology is here and functioning. Thank you.
Anyone else?
I'm just rereading the description for hybrid, and would this be starting in the next the January board meeting? Is that right? Is when we started?
Yep, as long as we're all trained, which in my assumption, because I'm leading the meeting, a big part of that training has to be me, but you guys also have to be able to use the equipment, right? So my understanding, and someone can jump in, it's not like what we were doing, which was just cumbersome, right? It's more streamlined, correct? It's more natural.
Yes, that is correct. We would not have to mute and headphones and do all the things that we did previously.
Thank you.
Yeah, that, because that was hard to manage, y'all. Okay. Any other, Mitzi, welcome back. Glad you got your connection back. We are currently on board meeting format. And the question that I presented for the discussion is, are you interested in online as we are now, or moving to hybrid? At this point, I've heard from Director McVeigh, who has said hybrid, Director Benaloga, who has said hybrid, Director Perez, who has said hybrid. Director Benaloga just had a question about the equipment. And so that's where we are, but welcome back. Benaloga, what's your pleasure in terms of choice?
Chair Ford, I think Director Benaloga said hybrid.
Yeah, I was hybrid as well.
Okay, great. So Director Strado and Director Bauer. Director Way, did you say hybrid? And no,
No.
I didn't get. Okay.
Thank you. I was just clarifying the timeline, and I would be in favor of hybrid. And I guess I just need a little bit more clarity in terms of the community, voice in this. And are we still letting the public sit inside the meeting room, or is it just from what I'm understanding the background, it's just the directors will be there with staff and superintendent, and the public can still provide comment and feedback, but they aren't necessarily going to be seated with us. Is that okay?
Yeah, we have a couple recommendations, of course, using the social distancing or the physical distancing rules. There is limitations to who can be in the room. Of course, there's an element of essential presenters. So everyone that's on the agenda from staff, that's a number, right? And depending on the number of community requests, that's a number. So we would have to consider everything once we decide whether we're going to go hybrid or not. I think the next step is deciding the how.
Okay. I am in favor of it. As long as, we also, of course, figure out all of those really important details around how do we actually implement it in a safe way for everyone.
Director Strado, Director Bauer. And again, I want to be clear, I'm hearing people's interest, right? But I do know this is one question of several. So there's no obligation to your interests not switching based on, other parts of the discussion not feeling that it fits your interests. So I just want to be clear about this. Director Strado, Director Bauer.
Yeah, this is Director Strado. My interest is to learn and see what this new system is and how it will work. But yes, I have an interest in learning about hybrid.
Director Bauer.
Thank you, Chair Ford, and glad to be back. I am interested in the hybrid, but I want everyone to feel safe, and I don't want it to present more work for staff. Those are some of my interests. I do want to throw out the point that hybrid places a lot of responsibility on our chair, and she already has a lot of responsibility and pressure. I think she gets more than anyone else as our chair. So I do want to respect her input, and I value that heavily. All of us have received negativity, but I do want to get back. That's important. I have some concerns about the variant, but if we follow guidelines, that will help. All that said, I support the format coming back, maybe in small steps with testing the equipment and letting our speakers in one at a time is kind of what I was thinking about. But that's the how, and maybe I'm ahead of myself.
Okay, and then I'm interested in us exploring the hybrid option. I think that the equipment will be helpful, especially if it's not like it was. I'm excited to see how the nuances work. And I'm excited to keep the online part. Like I have been saying, I think that as much as there's folks who want us to be in person, the online portion of our meetings has expanded our world extensively. I think that oftentimes when we are fully able people, we forget that those that are differently abled, those that have time constraints, those that have insecurities financially, all different things can limit access to an in-person meeting. So I don't want us to ever, if possible, get rid of this option. I just think it's really powerful and it's allowed a lot of people to see what they couldn't see before. So I'm open to that. So let's move into a conversation or discussion around the how. So we do have some guidelines in our documents that we can, of course, go by, but I will say that I think there's two ways we can look at this. And I know that the team in our paperwork has suggested that one option is to hand it to them and let them work on it. I'm going to say, board, that I think we can figure this out without handing them another project. I think that they can give us guardrails in terms of what we have to fall in line with, like what is our guidelines. But I think as a group, we can figure out the how of it and go from there with some input. So I'm assuming Cindy and Dr. James and whomever else, if we start talking about hows that are out of line, please interject and let us know. But I would like us to take a stab at coming up with a how, so that we can walk away with some understanding. So suggestions are, just looking at everything that we were given, I'm going to throw out a couple suggestions. Essential staff should get priority. So that would be obviously the board members and staff that need to be in the meeting, whether it's they're presenting and all people related, right? So sometimes we get a school that's presenting and they bring students or they bring other staff members. All of those folks on the agenda should get seating priority first. And that will also determine the room, right? And who's in the room. And then my other suggestion for community request is that we of course have all the same rules and processes that we have, but that then becomes a thing based on priority, how many can be in at one time, because we may have challenges with the room if we prioritize who needs to be there for the agenda, and yet there's a doubling of a size that wants to come in at one time. So that's my suggestions, but I'm opening the floor for discussion on the how of the meeting.
Chair Ford, would you, I'm not sure if I actually heard the occupancy number possible in that room.
Can someone help us with that? What is the occupancy?
And that would be the vintage based on the current numbers that are done.
Chair Ford, I believe this is Chair Bauer. I need to leave my camera off. I'm having internet connectivity again problem, but there are some notes. I think with our board book, it said if you do 3 feet distancing, staff and audience chairs, let's see, 6 feet apart, 4 chairs in each row, total of 24. Staff and audience chairs 3 feet apart, 9 rows, 6 chairs, a total of 54. But then there also, it depends on how we sit, I think, superintendent, board secretary, and the board members. That's part of it too.
So let's take it one thing at a time. how would you prefer that we sit? Or is everyone comfortable sitting on the, what is that thing called? The dais? Is that an actual dais?
The diocese, yep.
Okay. There it is. Are we comfortable sitting there together? Is it, how many feet is that?
I can go measure it.
I guess
Well, I would say we didn't sit like that before. When we were meeting in person, we were somewhere on the floor, right? Like we extended that U out.
Right.
Correct. If we sit at the dais, it's about 3 feet. We would be looking at 3 feet apart. If we wanted to get to the 6 feet, then we would need to extend out further into the tables in a different configuration. That's there.
Okay,
You
so
could probably
basically
plexiglass between us.
you said plexiglass between us
Yeah,
with 3 feet. Is that what you're suggesting?
that way we can just keep the same configuration.
Do we have the plexiglass?
Get it.
We have
I can
enough
donate it.
tabletop ones we could move around.
Okay. So what's the pleasure of the board? To sit 3 feet with plexiglass or 6 feet with no plexiglass and extend into the floor?
Three feet with the plexiglass, if that's doable.
Anyone else?
I'm fine with that.
Okay. Anyone else?
I'm fine with the 3 feet with the plexiglass as well.
Okay.
Me 4. Chair.
Okay. Okay, well, hearing no other comments, that's majority. So 3 feet plexiglass, we're all sitting as we were. So I'm gonna stick to the configuration discussion. So now, if it's 3 feet for us, are we saying 3 feet for others?
Before, this is Director Trail. I think we need to be flexible and just follow the guidelines that are above us, the county or state level. I'm not sure what we're currently at, but if they change from 3 feet to 6 feet, we need staff to be able to make the changes needed when it happens, and it changes frequently. So if currently is 3 feet, then I'm fine with 3 feet, but it seems like it would not just be horizontal, it'd be diagonal in the seating environment as well. So it may lower the number of people possible in the configuration, but I leave that to staff.
So Dr. James or Tiffany, where are we at now with what are the requirements?
Yeah, so one point that we would want to raise is that if we use the 3 feet measurement for audience, then anyone who is unvaccinated would end up in a quarantine situation, perhaps, if they've been exposed to something, because we would be over our 15 minutes of exposure without the proper social distancing. So 6 feet would be better for us in terms of being able to follow the guidelines with our audience not necessarily knowing who is vaccinated or unvaccinated, is what we would share. Tiffany, I don't know, our chief of staff, I don't know if she has any additional information to share.
No, I concur with you that about that point. From a contact tracing standpoint, more than 15 minutes closer than 6 feet poses an additional hurdle in the contact tracing and quarantining process.
So 6 feet removes the quarantine requirement?
Yes, as long as the people weren't together closer than 6 feet in the lobby or somewhere else for 15 minutes, but yes, in a sitting situation.
Right. Okay, so based on that information and those kind of guidelines, are we still committed to 3 feet?
For sure, I'm committed to 6 feet in the audience. I'm willing to say I'm vaccinated at the dais, if anybody else wants to know. And that way the 3 feet could be for 3 feet with plexiglass.
So I think what I heard you say is 3 feet with the plexiglass for us was 6 feet on the floor. Is that what you said?
Yeah, I'm sorry, my connection may not be great. So since audience people who come there and staff that are required to be there for certain presentations, since we do not know and we're not going to ask for vaccination status, we should have 6 feet separation in the room, with the exception of at the dais having 3 feet with plexi between us, if the board so desires.
Okay, so what I'm hearing as a suggestion is we keep the 3 feet for us, plexiglass, but the floor becomes 6 feet to abide by and potentially avoid some quarantine stuff. How are we feeling about that?
Chair Ford, this is Director Bauer. I think that's very reasonable. I mean, I would like to follow the latest restrictions and avoid quarantine.
I have a clarifying. So even if we're 3 feet and the floor is 6 feet, if someone with the 6 feet separation is identified with COVID, we have to quarantine still, or we're, no?
Go ahead, Chief.
Sure. Anyone who's unvaccinated and unsymptomatic would not need, or anyone who is vaccinated and unsymptomatic would not need to quarantine. Anyone who is within closer than 6 feet for more than 15 minutes and unvaccinated would quarantine.
Everyone's getting an epidemiology education. Okay, so how we feel about that? 3 feet, 6 feet on the floor. Where are we at with that? How we do it? I hear one yes. Anyone else?
I'm personally okay with 3 feet on the floor because because you're choosing not to be vaccinated, so that's a choice. I would also be okay with the essential staff to zoom in because they don't really have a choice. But that's I'll go with the decision of the board.
So another suggestion I heard was 3 feet on the floor with essential staff zooming in. Other suggestions?
Chair Ford, this is Bauer. I'm still leaning towards these 3 feet for us and 6 feet for the audience on the floor.
Yeah, Chair Ford, I'm also leaning that way, right, at this time. 3 feet with the glass for the board, 6 feet for the audience.
This is Director Schragle. I think we possibly can blend some of it together if Dr. James feels like some staff can do zoom in, that would free up some space for community members to join that otherwise would not. So if there's a way to be optimal, I think it would meet both interests of Director McVeigh and other people's that I'm here.
Anyone else?
This is Director Way. I'm fine with that option for staff. And I also like the 3 feet plexiglass in the dais and then the 6 feet out for the audience.
Yeah, and Chair, just to clarify, because my 1.5 brain cells. I'm confused. I want to clarify. So for the staff, it would be, as long as it would be optional for them, it's not like a mandatory, they would have to Zoom in, correct? Am I hearing that right? I mean, I know.
Yeah, I think that everyone's saying that they could Zoom in if they wanted to. And
Okay.
I don't think anyone's saying that they have to Zoom in.
Okay.
But they could.
That.
Mhm.
Thank you.
If I can add here, I think just to help a little bit, if we did at the dais 3 feet distancing and 6 feet in the audience, we're probably looking at a minimum of 6 staff that would need to be there. There would be, with that configuration, there's about 24 folks could be in the audience. And so if we had a minimum of 6 staff there, we'd probably be looking at about 18, give or take, depending on the presenters and who needed to be present, that could potentially be in the room, if that helps.
Director Barry.
Yes, Chair Ford, I just wanted to echo the sentiments that I agree with the 3 feet on the dais with the plexiglass, 6 feet in the audience, and the suggestion that staff can Zoom in if they so choose.
Okay, I think I heard from everyone. Am I correct? Okay, so what I'm hearing is 3 feet plexiglass on between us. 6 feet separation on the audience side, with staff having the option to Zoom in. So now my next question is around masking. What is our pleasure? Or what is our requirements first, Tiffany?
Yes, universal indoor masking unless eating or drinking immediately following returning the mask.
Okay. So then what is our recourse for non-compliance?
Well, that would be at the chair's discretion, closing down a meeting. My strongest recommendation to the superintendent is that staff would clear the room. Should there be anyone who's unwilling to mask, from an employment standpoint, we have a duty to ensure that our employees have full coverage from Oregon Health Authority's regulations. They have to have that. So that would be my strongest recommendation to the superintendent.
Question about recourse. So persons unmasked does not choose to become masked. Can I decide to go to an online version instead of just shutting the meeting down? Business cannot be conducted, but can we transfer to an online version? Take a recess and then continue.
That would be at your discretion and the superintendent's. From a technical standpoint, I think it would probably take a 10 or 15-minute recess. And we would want to make sure that all of the board members had devices with them in order to move in that direction if we needed to.
Yeah. Does anyone know the rules around how long a recess can be? I'm trying to figure out if it's enough time to send everyone home.
Dr. Schradel, yours doesn't, OERs, they don't talk about this kind of thing. With Robert's rules, you can do a recess. Once a meeting has started in Roberts, it can change into it doesn't call out that it cannot be done. So it would be a matter of doing a recess, potentially doing the air wall to the dais and start up again, and we don't move. If audience is not willing to, if they wish to be unmasked and be defiant and not leave, that the choices are the chairs.
Okay. So I'm going to ask the question just for clarity, so everyone's clear, there's no one shocked. I would like to reserve the right, if someone is defiant and unwilling to follow the masking rules, to recess the meeting and get us all home, however long that takes, and continue the meeting so we can continue business of the district and not have to be delayed and things that have to get done. Is everyone okay with that?
Sounds fair. Sounds good to me, Chair.
I see head nod. So again, I don't want anyone shocked. I want us to all be clear on, what our process is. And I will also make the statement that that would be probably what the stance I will take for any unsafe scenario in the room at any time, making sure that we all are in a situation that we all feel safe. Okay. Okay, last but not least, are there any other concerns that we want to bring up before moving forward with our decision?
Chair Ford, sorry, I have to keep turning my video off because of the Wi-Fi. I do think we should think about, and I don't know if we can solve it tonight, but is the number of, I just think escort, if we have 50 people that want to make public comment, the escorting back and forth and them not being able to participate in the full meeting. So maybe we have a lottery, or we say there's going to be 15 slots open for in person and the rest will be online. I don't know what that number is, but it doesn't seem very functional to be escorting people back and forth. And what if they want to be part of it, the other part of the meeting, and they can't be because they weren't the last speaker, they were the first speaker. And so I'm not sure how that would look, but we might want to look at a process for that.
Oh yeah, let's talk about it. I will say that I would assume many people have smartphones and they should probably stay on it if they're not able to come in the room. But what are suggestions? I will throw out my suggestion is that we have the person that's speaking come in, obviously, based on our policy. So it's based on residents, and of course our youth go first. And then I get to have that call based on our policy. But the number of people in the room should dictate who gets in first. So in my opinion, I think that if you're speaking, you should get there early enough to try to get a seat. If not, then you do have to be escorted in to get to your speaking role. But that's just my suggestion. So what else would other people like to see?
I have a couple of thoughts. Well, first off, I do think we need to have a time limit on public testimony. I think that's wise, just so that, I don't think it should be hours and hours, so that we can also conduct our regular business as a board. So one, I just, again, would just, whatever time it is, I would just have that time limit available. I think we should still make it 3 minutes for each person to go. However, if there's that example that Director McVeigh said, if there's like 50 people or 30 people that all they want to talk about is one issue, then, I think it's up to the chair, but I think we should be able to maybe consolidate some of those testimonies. Maybe 10 of them can go, but speak for 1 minute each. So those are just my suggestions, but I do think that personally, I think we should have just a start time and an end time for public comment. And, I'm also just looking at this room configuration and the number of seats that we have as a maximum. And so for anyone who is signed up to testify and who said they're going to be there in person, maybe, we can just block off like 1 or 2 rows of chairs for them. And so as they get seated, they know like, this is where you're seating. When your name gets called up, please share your testimony. So those are just some of the ideas that I have for now.
Anyone else?
This is Director Shadle. I've had a couple of emails and texts kind of saying safety is a concern. Somebody doesn't some people don't feel comfortable if other people are going to be loud and make them feel concerned for their personal safety. So I know you mentioned, you would apply that going to online in all those kind of situations, but I wanted to echo that there are people in our community that are concerned by what they see at other board meetings that have gone wrong direction. And we serve them as well.
Yep. So two things, I just want to respond back to what we just heard. I'm fine with, we have a process now for people to sign up for public comment. I'm fine with having the people that choose to speak have a certain number of seats available, and we can rotate that out. I don't want it to be a thing where we just have a blanket open setting where we just block seats based on the public comment, because it could be the whole room. And that might be problematic if we have other people that need to be there. So I think the first row idea is a great idea. And then we can go from there and see how it works. I do want to say that a lot of times we get people who have comments, but don't always want to speak, to Director Schrader's point. So it's not always people who want to speak, but their comments are still read by us, right? And there's still something that's valid. So if we're all okay with us doing that, I'd like us to start with that. And then we can see, and we can have a process for the other ones, which as the chair, I can lead that process. Now, moving into the safety conversation, I know we had talked about this in the past, but what are our security options in the building, around the building, if we wanted to use them? What are our options, if any?
I can share that we could look into potentially having our campus monitors who wish to join us on that evening for security. We could look into a paid security situation with a outside company. We'd have to have those conversations and do a little bit of research on that. And it looks like Tiffany Shireman might have some other thoughts to share as well.
I would underscore those that you have shared, along with having conversations with our local law enforcement is another option. Yes.
Okay, so then I will say that maybe explore those options and make sure we have something available at the meetings. And of course, these are options that will be announced, so no one's surprised by any of it. But I think it would be helpful for people. Any other concerns that we need to bring up?
Chair Ford, I do have some concerns about folks gathering in large numbers outside of the building, and how we're gonna handle that. And also folks coming to the lobby. And I mean, I guess who's just just what's the setup and the process for just managing folks, especially if people are choosing not to wear masks, but they're not directly inside the boardroom, but they're just outside.
Yeah. So our next meeting is what day? January 13th, is that correct? And do we have an executive session? That's what I'm really asking. Anybody know?
Chair Ford, we don't have one currently scheduled, but we can add an executive session to, and it is January 13th would be the next meeting.
So I would suggest that we do an executive session, and during that executive session, we have a practice for the entire thing, right? And we also have a practice of for a lack of better terms, emergency exiting, if that is needed. In between now and then, chairs and superintendent can talk about those options. And then that evening, we'll discuss what options are available to you as board members if we would need to have an exit. I know that some folks probably don't see any of this necessary that may be listening, and I will say this, unfortunately it is. There have been too many examples across our nation, in this state, our neighboring school districts, for which many of us have watched, which have been less than exemplary. And I don't want us to have to be a part of that list. So we will be prepared for the unfortunate if that is our reality. How does that make everyone feel?
Chair Ford, go ahead.
I think it's important to say and to plan for. I just have faith in our community that it won't happen. I hope that outsiders don't ruin it for everybody, I guess, is what I hope.
Chair Ford, I was just going to say, it's important to talk about it and get it out there and know what alternatives we have. But I agree, I have hope in our community that it would be better.
And Chair Ford, I just want to say that, students watch us all the time and they model adults. So I hope that we as adults and public leaders and community members who show up set a great example for the generation that is watching our every move and what we say and how we conduct ourselves.
Could be a real recruiting coup for us if other districts see North Clackamas doing it right and the community engaging the way that should be engaging. Like I know that we will. We might have teachers all over the state saying, I want to go back, I want to work for North Clackamas. So.
Okay, well, then I think we have a plan. So we're moving towards hybrid meetings in our next meeting, which is mid-January. We will all sit in our regular spaces with plexiglass in between us. We will have 6 feet spacing on the floor for our guest. We will block off a row in the front for our speakers that use the same process to sign up for speaking. And we will have an executive session where we will review everything from technology to and all contingency planning for our meeting. And as a board chair, I will do my best to manage those things. And hopefully, you all know that I will manage that with respect and honor. So hopefully if that's what's given, that's what we receive. So with that being said, any other comments or questions?
Chair Ford, this is Board Secretary Sandra Henderson. I will need to check that we can do what you're talking about in executive session. It may have to be a work session.
Okay, either way, we need something. Whatever is legal, let's do that.
Okay.
Any other comments or anything else? Cool. Well, congratulations. We are going back to hybrid. So I am curious to what our comments will be next time, now that we are moving in person. I am super excited to see you all in person, and I'm super excited to hopefully see you all where you call us all by our first names and no other name. And we all learned how to function in this world that has been very complicated, but yet we navigated it all very well. So thank you all for your comments. Thank you all for your time. Be kind to each other, eat good things, and listen to good things, because maybe all of that will create good things. Thank you all. Good night.